All right, Shalom.
Shalom.
I want to start off this video by giving all praise, honor, and glory
To
to
Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Ba'ashem,
Yahushua,
Ba'ashem,
Rukakudash, and double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. All right, these are your fellow servants from the GMS Orlando camp, and tonight we want to get into the first installment of Law and Order. All right, where we're going to touch on some of the laws that the Lord gave us, all right, and get into the order that they bring, through the Spirit. Lord, when this is edifying unto you elect. All right, in this first installment, we're going to be going into the law of refuge, all right, found in a plethora of scriptures, all right, but namely in Numbers, the 35th chapter. All right, but before we get into Numbers 35, we want to start off here in Deuteronomy chapter 4. And let's see, let's get verse 7. Or 6.
Let's get 5.
Yeah, let's start at 5. This is Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 5. It reads, "Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my power commanded me, that you should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. But what nation is there so great, who have the Heavenly Father so nigh unto them, as the Lord, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, our power, is in all things that we call upon him for."
Okay. So when you deal with the law of the city of refuge, all right, compared to how Esau deals, all right, the Lord is more gracious and there's more wisdom when you deal with the cities of refuge. All right, because basically the cities of refuge were reserved for men who had essentially committed manslaughter. All right. Now, Esau, in his system, he'll put you around a whole bunch of men for, let's get it. Let's see. I got you. So if we go to the manslaughter sentence, in Florida, we'll use Florida as an example. The crime of manslaughter is a second-degree felony in Florida and punishable by up to 15 years in prison, 15 years of probation, and a $10,000 fine. Manslaughter is assigned a level 7 offense, severity ranking under Florida's criminal punishment code. Now, Esau has institutions where you'll put a man around other men, all right, for years, all right, sometimes decades. But what the Lord is saying is that we're going to go into it, but the Lord has these laws set up very particularly to show forth wisdom, all right, because there's manslaughter that happens accidentally, and then there's manslaughter that happens intentionally. And the Lord has made provisions for both.
Right. And what you get by that is order.
Right.
All right, true order. Because what Esau, the system that Esau has going on right now with his whole prison system, it creates a lot of chaos. Because when you put those type of men around each other, even the men who are innocent, who weren't necessarily murdering with enmity.
Right.
When you put those men under the same judgment, under the same scrutiny as those merciless killers, it creates chaos, which is what we see today. You got a group of men together, some doing 15 years, some doing 2 years, all that testosterone, and it's chaos, man. You get killers, you get more murderings out of that, and more unrighteousness follows after that. You know what goes down.
Right.
But we're going to get into it.
All right, so I'm going to jump down, since we're in Deuteronomy 4. I'm going to jump down to 41. All right, and it reads, "Then Moses severed 3 cities on this side Jordan toward the sun rising, that the slayer might flee thither, which should kill his neighbor unawares, and hated him not in times past, and that fleeing unto one of these cities he might live."
Right. So we had 6 refuge cities within our whole nation, that if you were to commit one of these murders, or mercilessly, unmercifully, all right, or by accident, you were able to run into that city, all right, as a place of refuge to await your judgment, all right, because as before they had, the judge with the gavel and the big black coat, all right, you had the elders that sat at the gate, who judged matters, all right, and before you got your judgment, you were able to run into that refuge city, Now we had 6.
Now continuing real quick, it says, verse 43, "Namely, Bezer in the wilderness, in the plain country of Reubenites, and Ramoth in Gilead of the Gadites, and Golan and Bashan of the Manassites, And this is the law which Moses set before the children of Israel. All right, so that's just a brief encounter of what the law of refuge deals with. All right, now we're going to go to Numbers 35 and really get the meat and understanding of this precept. So this is Numbers chapter 35 and verse 9. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Yashar'alah, and say unto them, When ye be come over Jordan into the land of Canaan, then ye shall appoint you cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the slayer may flee thither, which killeth any person at unawares. So accidentally, all right, putting somebody to death. Verse 12 reads, And they shall be unto you cities for refuge from the avenger, that the manslayer die not, until he stand before the congregation in judgment. All right, because what did they do? They wanted to determine if he did this intentionally or if it was an unintentional murder. All right, or unintentional death. I'll say it that way. All right, continuing, it says, verse 13, And these cities which ye shall give, 6 cities shall ye have for refuge. Ye shall give 3 cities on this side Jordan, and 3 cities shall ye give in the land of Canaan, which shall be cities of refuge.
Now, these cities, when you get into it and how they were positioned, or they were positioned in a way to where it was easily accessible, to that murderer, so to speak. He was able to get to that place of refuge before he was slain. All right, so that proper judgment can befall him. All right, and these places of refuge were namely in places where, like marketplaces, places where fairs were held, places that didn't sell armor, so that the avenger, all right, of that murder, that so-called murderer, all right, can go there and buy a weapon and kill him. These places of refuge were in neutral places, so to speak.
And that's what the city of refuge was. It was a neutral place until they can determine if it was an accidental death or if he was intentional and he had enmity. All right, because Jay could have used this law to have beef with a brother and then just lean on it. All right, and use it as a way to get out of judgment for killing somebody he really wanted to kill anyway.
Right, and the scriptures say that blood defileth the land. And by all that unrighteous killing, our land will be defiled. Therefore, the Lord gave us this law, all right, on the cities of refuge, all right, which would eliminate that chaos, which would eliminate that unrighteous blood or that righteous blood being shed.
So at verse 15, it says, These 6 cities shall be a refuge, both for the children of Israel and for the stranger, and for the sojourner among them, that everyone that killeth any person unawares may flee thither. Now, when you get this word, unawares, all right, is sagaga or shagaga, and it says sin of error or in inadvertent sin. So if we go into this word, inadvertent, it reads, not resulting or achieved through deliberate planning. So this is somebody who literally accidentally killed somebody, all right, for whatever the circumstance is. Maybe the guy rose up against him, whatever the case may be. But we're showing the difference between what Esau does with manslaughter and what the Lord actually does, because in the kingdom, these laws are going to be implemented against the heathen when they do certain things. We're not going to build establishments where men have to get naked in front of other men, bend over and cough. That's off. All right, in these cities of refuge, men were allowed to bring their wives. All right, we're going to go into how long the man would stay in that city of refuge, Lord willing.
Mm-hmm. You got it.
So continuing at verse 16, and if he smite him with an instrument of iron so that he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death.
Right, now that's intentional murder. All right, he smote him with the iron. He smote him with a weapon. All right, so that he would die. So therefore, he would be called a murderer. All right, and that murderer would be put to death. All right, that was the judgment for that type of slaying. All right.
Now, real quick, just to give you a visual of what this actually looks like, as far as the cities of refuge. Let me use this site as an example. But these are the cities of refuge. All right, Kadesh, Shechem, Hebron, Bezer, Ramoth, and Golan. All right, these are considered the 6 cities of refuge. All right. Now continuing at verse 17, and it reads, and if he smite him with throwing a stone, wherewith he may die, and he died, he is a murderer. the murderer shall surely be put to death.
Right. So if you got somebody that picks up a stone, hurls it in intent to murder, he's a murderer. All right. His judgment is to be put to death. All right. You got it.
Continuing, verse 18, or if he smite him with a hand weapon of wood, wherewith he may die, and he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death.
And this is all intentional acts of murder. This is all intentional acts of slaying.
Right.
All right. If you take up the iron weapon and you go against a man intending to kill him, you are a murderer. All right. And the Lord sanctioned for you to be put to death. Likewise, if you were to raise up with a stone on somebody, all right, it's the same judgment. All right. Intentional murder was not acceptable. All right. Within the laws of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. All right. And if you did run to one of those refuge cities, your judgment was death. If it was determined that you smote your brethren are in enmity.
And that's an important point. So if you intentionally kill somebody, and it's determined that you intentionally killed somebody, and you ran to a city of refuge, your ass will still get put to death. You're not safe. Once they determine that you were guilty, you're gonna get put to death because it was hatred, it was enmity, and you tried to use a city of refuge as a scapegoat.
Right. And that's where, all the chaos goes on within our communities with these blood vendettas. You got Jake that off somebody's cousin, intentionally, and they don't receive that judgment for it. So then that family comes against them, and it's a decades war, to the point where constant blood is being shed, and it's a bunch of chaos. This eliminates that. All right. If that murder, if you murder somebody intentionally, your judgment was to get put to death. To eliminate that family feud, to eliminate that blood vendetta, nip it right there at the bud.
Now, continuing at verse 19, Numbers 35 and 19 says, the revenger of blood himself shall slay the murderer. When he meeteth, he shall slay him. Now, when you deal with the NLT, it says this: the victim's nearest relative is responsible for putting the murderer to death. When they meet, the avenger must put the murderer to death. Now, keep in mind, this is if it happens to be that he intentionally did it, or if he is caught before he makes it to the city of refuge. All right? Who's going to say something about?
Could you read that one more time, Bo?
Verse 19, Numbers 35 and 19. The revenger of blood himself shall slay the murderer, and when he meeteth him, he shall slay him.
Right, so revenge came into that family. All right, that vendetta was settled, by them catching that murderer. And when you go to Esau's court system, you have that murderer sitting, right in front of you, and the family's having to sit back and hold their peace, knowing that their family member got murdered unrighteously. And that causes a lot of people to jump over the gate, causes a lot of people to lose their mind because proper judgment isn't going forward. Right. You got it.
Verse 20, but if he thrust him of hatred, or hurled at him by laying of weight, then that he die, or in enmity smite him with his hand that he die, he that smote him shall surely be put to death, for he is a murderer. The revenger of blood shall slay the murderer when he meeteth him.
So if you had a fist fight, and it was known that you had enmity with that brother, and you killed them, you were considered a murderer. All right, it wasn't no. Oh, that's an accident. No, you were a murderer, man, and your proper judgment was to be put to death. And these are proper judgment. This is when you get into the reality of things. This is the way the earth should be ran.
Right.
Because when the earth is not ran by these standards, when the earth is not held by these standards, this is what we get. We get America, Babylon the Great. We get this type of nigga, grimy culture. But you got it, bro.
Now, what I want to do is I want to read those verses in the NLT just to get the understanding of, because there's a focus on hate. There's a focus on enmity. If these situations fall under a situation of enmity or hatred, then that person is going to get put to death. Manslaughter is reserved for pure, actual accidents. All right? Nothing that you can try to use or get around, because basically they said that you'll run to the city of refuge and then they'll decide, they'll discern, they'll judge if you were doing this intentionally or if you did it out of spite, out of hatred, out of enmity. All right, now real quick, this is Numbers 35 and 13 in the NLT. Cities of refuge for yourselves. 3 on the east side of the Jordan River, and 3 on the west in the land of Canaan. These cities are for the protection of Israelites, foreigners living among you, and traveling merchants. Anyone who accidentally kills someone may flee there for safety. And that's a huge difference between Esau will put you around a whole bunch of men for 15, 20 years, man.
Right.
And that's cruel. That's not mercy in that judgment, especially if it determines that it was an accident.
What was that film about? Shot callers?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Shot callers is a perfect example of what the brother's going into right now. Here it is. You had somebody that he was drunk, and he had a car accident, ended up killing a person in the car with him, his friend. And here it is. He got sent with the killers. He got sent with the gang members, and in turn, he turned into a gang member. Right. He turned into a merciless killer. And that's improper judgment, man. Here it is. You may be building something, and a stone fall, and it fall upon a man, and you accidentally kill him. That's not means for that man to be put to death. He should receive mercy for that, because ultimately that was judgment from the Lord. That man didn't come against him in enmity. He didn't come against him in strife. It was just a pure judgment from Yahweh Shem Yahushua.
And it's going to give you an example of what would be considered a accident, what would be considered a manslaughter, where the city of refuge could protect him. All right, continuing at verse 16, it says, but if someone strikes and kills another person with a piece of iron, it is murder, and the murderer must be executed. Or if someone with a stone in his hand strikes and kills another person, it is murder, and the murderer must be put to death. Or if someone strikes and kills another person with a wooden object, it is murder, and the murderer must be put to death. The victim's nearest relative is responsible for putting the murderer to death. When they meet, the avenger must put the murderer to death. So if someone hates another person and pushes him or throws a dangerous object at him and he dies, it is murder. Or if someone hates another person and hits him with a fist and he dies, it is murder. In such cases, the avenger must put the murderer to death when they meet. But suppose someone pushes another person without having shown previous hostility, or throws something that unintentionally hits another person, or accidentally drops a huge stone on someone, though they were not enemies, and the person dies. If this should happen, the community must follow these regulations in making a judgment between the slayer and the avenger, the victim's nearest relative.
Right. So these are cases of a slaying, all right, that didn't happen because of enmity. It wasn't a intentional slaying. You were building, you dropped a stone upon somebody, or forget what the other example was. A stone where
if you push another person right, without having shown previous hostility.
Right. If you didn't have any previous hostility between a man, all right, that wasn't considered to be a murder. It was unintentional. All right. And the judgment for that, if that man were to make it to that refuge city, all right, was that he would have mercy will befall upon him. He would be able to stay within that refuge city for a certain period of time before he was able to return.
All right, now I'm gonna go back to I'm gonna read 25, and then we'll go back to the KJV. So this is Numbers 35 and 25 in the NLT. The community must protect the slayer from the avenger, and must escort the slayer back to live in the city of refuge to which he fled. So if you commit a manslaughter, the community, if they find out and they determine it's a pure accident, the community, which is the family, the Israelites, basically protect you. All right, they make sure you make it to the city of refuge. All right, no man can slay you if you're in those limits. All right, but then there's a caveat. Continuing, it says, there he must remain until the death of the high priest, who was anointed with the sacred oil. And that's extremely important. So those who accidentally killed somebody, they had to go to the city of refuge, but they also had to stay there until the high priest at that time died. And then they were free to go back to their own property. All right, verse 26, you have something to say?
I do, but you keep reading out.
All right, verse 26. But if the slayer, you know what, let's go back to the KJV now, and then I'll bounce back. So this is Numbers 35, picking up at 26. It says, but if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and the revenger of blood find him without the borders of the city of his refuge, and the revenger of blood kill the slayer. He shall not be guilty of blood.
So if that man, if that murderer, all right, were to get caught by that family member, all right, that was getting revenge upon that person that got put to death, all right, he wouldn't be considered a murderer. All right, that would be considered just, all right, in the eyes of the Lord. You got it.
Continuing, it says, verse 28, because he should have remained in the city of his refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer shall return into the land of his possession. So we want to go through this through the Spirit to highlight some of these judgments that are going to be implemented in the kingdom. All right. When you deal with other nations, we're not going to build federal institutions where people go and they have to shower with other men. That's off, man. All right. Especially if it's found to be an accident. And if the person is guilty, it don't make sense to have a manslaughter who killed somebody intentionally get to remain alive for 15, 20 years.
Right. Because when you allow judgment to be delayed like that and fester, it breeds chaos, man. Judgment is supposed to happen expediently, as quickly as possible to put evil away from that city. There's a reason why the community made sure that man got to the refuge city, because if he didn't, and that man and that avenger killed him, that would be righteous blood. The blood would defile the land, and the whole nation of Israel would be held accountable for that. We see that personally, So when you allow judgment to be delayed, you allow unrighteous decrees to fester, it breeds chaos. Through the Spirit, we want to get into this series, Lord willing, to bring out some of the laws, all right, that the Lord bestowed upon our nation, all right, to shun chaos,
right,
and to bring order.
Right. Because the brother brought out a beautiful point. When you don't do this, you have these blood vendettas where men feel obligated to get their own justice because the system itself is not giving them justice. And this is how you cut those blood feuds off. Mm-hmm. If you were able to catch the man before he went to the city of refuge, then he's yours. If he make it to that city, then the judgment is going to go out. And we're going to figure out, Lord willing, if the man was doing it on accident or if he did it intentionally. If he did it intentionally, it's good night. End of discussion. You ain't going to live for 15, 20 years working out and sucking up resources. Right. You're going to get put back in the ground, and you'll be back in your third and fourth generation.
Right. And this is why it's important for each and every man of our nation to be trained up in judgment and the law, because eventually this is going to be your office.
I got you. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 1. Dare any of you having a matter against another go to the law before the unjust and not before the saints? Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matters?
Right. So the world is going to be judged by us. So as a nation, especially of the men of our nation, we have a heavy responsibility to be trained up in judgment and proper judgment. All right, even in the smallest matters, which is starting today, which is starting in our daily walks. We're learning how to exercise true judgment in our day-to-day walks. All right, and eventually it's going to lead to the judgment of the whole world. All right, being over nations, being over peoples, governing peoples, figuring out the different schisms that they're going through, and filtering it out through the laws, statutes, and commandments that the Lord gave us, And
these are important to understand, these things in the law that don't necessarily get brought out all the time, but they will apply in the kingdom of heaven. Cities of refuge, we don't know how exactly, detail by detail, how that's going to be decided. But the law of city of refuge is going to play out, all right? Because the other nations are got to come and learn of our ways. And part of our ways is the cities of refuge, so that you don't have men that become homosexuals because they spend all this time around other men and they're not allowed to be around their wives and their children.
Right.
That's off, man.
Right. And that culture, when you allow that culture to fester, it becomes popular. It becomes the in thing to do. And that's what you see amongst younger Jakes. They love that prison, that gangster culture, because it's nowadays it's regarded to be a gangster. It's regarded Jake willing to go to jail just so they can have those stripes, just so they can have that under their belt, so they can say, "Yeah, I've been to jail." And that's unrighteous, man. That's garbage. That's foolishness, man. You're not supposed to have a nation that looks forward to degeneracy, man.
Now, real quick, this is Deuteronomy 17 and 12. And the man that will do presumptuously and will not hearken unto the priest that standeth to minister there before the Lord thy power, or unto the judge, even that man shall die. And this is the point, and thou shalt put away the evil from Yashar'Allah. And this is how the laws are set up to put away evil. All right, setting up federal institutions where criminals become better criminals because they're around criminals is backwards.
Right.
You got it up.
Right. And this is like the brother brought out, this is all in order to put evil away from us. All right, because when we allow evil to fester within our nation, this is what we get. We get chaos. We get brought to the lowest estate. We get brought, the curses get brought upon us. All right. So through these curses, we're learning the necessity of righteous judgment. We're learning the necessity of these laws, statutes, and commandments that we forsook at one point in time. You know, what does it say? I can get this real quick out. And Sirach, double one against another. Sirach 42, or Ecclesiasticus 42 and verse 24. It reads, all things are double one against another, and he hath made nothing imperfect. One thing establisheth the good or of another, and who shall be filled beholding his glory? All right, one thing establisheth the good of another. All right, and by wickedness being established in the earth, or wickedness being promoted in the earth, it establishes the need for righteousness. You know, it establishes the need for the law to go forth and reign within the earth.
And this is why the scripture said when the righteous are in authority, that people are going to rejoice. All right, because again, this is one simple law that is actually extremely important. We got a lot of men who are sitting in these institutions that may have accidentally killed somebody. The scriptures talk about the Lord delivering certain men into the hands of guys who accidentally killed somebody as a judgment. But they themselves are not guilty because they didn't do it out of hatred. But when you don't have these laws, this is the kind of society you get. A nigga who spent 20 years behind a wall and now he institutionalized and he just all fucked up, excuse my French, because he's been put in an unnatural environment. That's what that is.
Right.
You got it.
Right. And this and really this is the most natural it's gonna get. All right, as far as judgment and order is concerned. All right, the laws, statutes, and commandments that were given us as a nation. All right, when I say us, I'm referring to you Israelites. All right, which today consists of you so-called Negroes, so-called Latinos, and so-called Native American Indians. All right, as well as those of you who have been scattered abroad, who may come looking and speaking like other nations, but in fact your spirit and your seed line goes back into the nation of Israel. All right, these laws that were bestowed upon us, all right, are the true. This is true nature. All right, this is true judgment. This is true. This is proper order that is supposed to be established in the earth. This is what's supposed to happen in the earth.
Right. This is Baruch chapter 4 and verse 1. This is the book of the commandments of Yahweh Shema Shai, and the law that endureth forever. And this is a part of the law. All right. Anybody who accidentally kills somebody, all right, we're going to keep hitting the point because Esau is unrighteous in his judgments. You got men who doing 35, 40 years around a whole bunch of men, where every time they go out and they go in, they got to get naked in front of other men, bend over and cough. And it creates this culture of abominable and despicable acts. Whereas the law teaches us that, look, if a man accidentally kills somebody, he goes to the city of refuge. If he goes outside of those city limits, he's fair game. If he stays there until the high priest dies, he is in good case and he's free to go. And that blood is not held to his charge. That's righteous. All right, because again, the laws go back to nation building and righteousness and justice. All right, Esau is completely opposite of that, because when you look at his system, it's really set up for free labor. All right, it's not really set up on righteousness. As the scriptures say, they say in their hearts, let our strength be the law of justice. Right. Continuing in verse 2, it says, turn thee, O Jacob, and take heed of it. Walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest be illuminated. Give not thine honor to another, nor the things that are profitable unto thee to a strange nation. O Israel, happy are we, for the things that are pleasing to the Most High are made known unto us.
And these are the things that please the Most High. Proper judgment pleases Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. And these things were made known unto us. You know, and now here in these latter days, we're starting to return unto this. We're starting to return unto the ways that are pleasing unto our power. You understand? And the way that we're doing that is by, one of the ways that we're doing that is by exercising true judgment. All right, and these judgments may seem harsh at first, but ultimately we have to get out of this Western mentality, because this Western mentality has taught us to diminish and dilute the ways of Yahweh Shema Shah. It's taught us that the Bible, and these laws are our old way of thinking. But in reality, man, this is the only way of thinking. This is the way that we should think. This is the way that things should be ran in the earth. All right, because when these things aren't established in the earth, once again, this is what we get. All right, we get a culture of chaos. We get black culture. We get Spanish culture. We get degeneracy, promoted amongst our people, amongst our nation.
All right, so with this scripture is Psalms 37:28. For the Lord loveth judgment, and forsaketh not his saints. They are preserved forever, but the seed of the wicked shall be cut off.
Right, it says the Lord loveth judgment. All right, the Lord loveth judgment, but the seed of the wicked shall be cut off. All right, and we know that this present seed that's ruling the earth, the seed of the wicked, which is Esau, Edom, all right, the so-called white race, they're going to be cut off. All right, because the Lord is not taking pleasure in what they're doing. The Lord is not taking pleasure in the judgment that they're perceiving.
Right. Now, real quick in the NLT, it reads, Psalms 37:28, for the Lord loves justice, and he will never abandon the godly. He will keep them safe forever, but the children of the wicked will die.
That's plain. That's plain. It don't get no plainer than that, man. All right, because with Yahweh Shema Shah is hot or cold, left or right. All right, you're going to listen and live, or you're going to rebel and die.
Right.
That's what it is with the Lord. And that's what it's always been with the Lord. And now we're starting to return them into that knowledge again, and exercise this proper judgment so that we are protected.
And you have to take your feelings out of the equation. And that's why the law was so important, because it established something above your feelings. If you felt some type of way about this man getting to live, if he made it to the city of refuge, what can you say? If you want to spend the rest of your life waiting outside that gate for the moment that he come out, that's up to you. But this is how justice was established. And then after the high priest died, that man was free to go. And then, Lord willing, that beef will be dead. They'll be like, all right, well, it is what it is. This is how the Lord ordained it. This kept boundaries and restraints. All right. And in the kingdom of heaven, the other nations are going to learn these laws, and they're going to know this code of conduct.
Right.
All right. Now, when you deal with that word judgment and justice, all right, NLT called it justice. The KJV called it judgment. Again, of course, we all know this. It goes into Mashapat.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's judgment, justice, ordinance. All right. Judgment, act of deciding a case. And these are the things that the Lord is, we're rehearsing right now, so that in the kingdom of heaven, they'll be implemented, all right, across the planet. You got it.
Hey, this is Judges chapter 5 and verse 11. It reads, they that are delivered from the noise of archers in the place of drawing water, there shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord, even the righteous acts toward the inhabitants of his villages in Israel. All right, when you go into any lawmaker, any lawyer, or any judge, before they receive that title of judge, they went through a training period. They went through a period in where they were taught up in the judicial system, all the penal codes of Esau, Edom. Likewise, us in the spirit. All right, before we're that title of judge and ruler and king is bestowed upon us, Lord willing, we're that number. All right, we have to go through this training period, all right, of exercising proper judgment, of rehearsing these righteous acts, so that when we get in the kingdom, it's gonna translate naturally.
You got it. You can finish that up.
It says, then shall the people of the Lord go down to the gates.
And that's what we're doing. We're going down to the gates with the understanding of judgment, all right, in its proper context. All right, now real quick, this is Deuteronomy 4:9. Only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen, and lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life. But teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons. So this was our actual education, learning about the laws of refuge, the cities of refuge, learning where they were located. All right. And for those who might have missed it, all right, this is where they were located in ancient Israel. All right. So you had these areas where, and it's spread out. So you had these areas where if men accidentally killed somebody, they could run to one of these cities and hold it down until the judgment came out to find out if it was intentional or if it was an accident.
Right.
And if it was an accident, then they were safe in the city of refuge, unless they stepped out of those city limits.
Right.
Now I'm going to go back to Numbers 35. And I believe we left off
22, 24.
All right. So I'm going to just start at 24. Numbers 35 and 24. Then the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the revenger of blood according to these judgments. And the congregation shall deliver the slayer out of the hand of the revenger of blood, and the congregation shall restore him to the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and he shall abide in it unto the death of the high priest, which was anointed with the holy oil. And that's important. All right, if you actually were not guilty of murder, and you stayed in one of these cities of refuge, when the high priest died, you were released. You were essentially free from the charge of that blood. Verse 26. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and the revenger of blood find him without the borders of the city of his refuge, and the revenger of blood kill the slayer, he shall not be guilty of blood. And that, it made me think about Jake in this world, because Jake, when they're close to somebody, they feel an obligation and a responsibility to render justice. All right, and that goes back to the revenger of blood. All right, even though it's in a wicked way. Even Jake who lay on people. Jake who got an enemy and they'll sleep in their car for 2-3 days,
Right.
leaving their cell phone at the house because they feel like a vendetta needs to be taken care of. Even though it's all wickedness, we want to point to how these laws, statutes, and commandments would rectify those situations. Mm-hmm. Now continuing, verse 28. Because he should have remained in the city of his refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer shall return into the land of his possession. So,
if I may say this, and by giving that amount of time, you allow that vendetta to kind of settle over. If you allow that man to go back to the city immediately, that anger, that wrath might be kindled right back against him by that family member, by that avenger. So by giving it that time period until the death of the high priest, you allow that anger, that vendetta to kind of settle down, to the point where things are forgiven, forgotten and forgiven, so to speak.
Continuing, verse 29, I'll finish up 28. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer shall return into the land of his possession. So these things shall be for a statute of judgment unto you throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Right. So this law never changes. All right, now in the kingdom, we're going to be righteous. So this is not going to apply to us as a nation of people. It's going to apply to the other nations. All right, verse 30 reads, whoso killeth any person, the murderer shall be put to death by the mouth of witnesses. But one witness shall not testify against any person to cause him to die. Moreover, ye shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer, which is guilty of death, but he shall be surely put to death.
Who says, moreover, ye shall not take satisfaction for the life of a murderer? All right, what does Jake do in this world? They take satisfaction in the life of murderous men. All right, all of Jake's music is full of murder and mayhem, man. And Jake takes satisfaction in that. And the Lord told us not to, because when you take satisfaction in that, you promote it. And when you promote it, all right, you get a bunch of unrighteous bloodshed, man. You get a bunch of evil, all right, that runs rampant within our nation. All right, this is why the Lord told us to implement these laws, man, and to not take satisfaction. All right, in him that slayeth unrighteously, man.
So I'm gonna read that one more time. This is Numbers chapter 35 and verse 31. Moreover, ye shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer, which is guilty of death, but he shall be surely put to death. And ye shall take no satisfaction for him that is fled to the city of his refuge, that he should come again to dwell in the land until the death of the priest. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are. Now, this is a precept we know all too well. For blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell among the children of Yashar'Allah.
Right. And this is all to keep pollution, all right, from our nation. All right, to keep our land from being polluted, to keep our people, our nation from being polluted by evil, by the works of unrighteousness. All right, you got it.
Now I want to go to this word satisfaction in verse. Let's go to 31. It said, "Moreover, ye shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer." When you go into that word, it's kafar. Kafar, and it says price of a life, ransom, bride. It says Strong's definition, a cover. An example, a village, vitamin used for coating, and the henna plant. Figuratively, a redemption price, bride, campfire, pitch, ransom, satisfaction, sum of money, village. All right, when you look at how this word is also used, all right, Exodus 21 and 30 says sum of money. All right, Exodus 30 and 12, ransom. So that means you can't buy your way out of this judgment. All right. Look at this. 1 Samuel 12 and 3, bride. So whatever man's judgment it is, that's the judgment. I don't care how many shekels you got.
Right, and that's what goes on in this system. If you had a right lawyer, you had a right, monetary funds. You can buy your way out of anything. You can buy your way out of murder. You can buy your way out of heinous crimes, man. Here in Esau's system, if you had a right lawyer, if you had the right money, and that's unrighteous, man.
Right.
That's a pollution of judgment.
Right. It's perversion of judgment. All right, because this is what Deuteronomy 16 and 19 says. Thou shalt not wrest judgment. Thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous.
Right. Oh, I got this in Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 7. It says, surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. All right, and by receiving these gifts and these bribes, by taking satisfaction in the life of a murderer, all right, you're destroyed. All right, not only are you destroyed, but you in turn destroy your people. Because once again, this is the laws were given unto us as a form of nation building.
Right.
And when you don't implement these laws and you allow certain things to pass by, when you slack on the law, the nation isn't built up until its full potential.
And things like what's going on in Chicago and in LA, it wouldn't happen like this. Because the first murder that started the whole gang beef it'd have been taken care of at that point. Mm-hmm. And that man would have been put to death, all right, if it was intentional. And it should be dead from there. Because the scriptures say you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. And you shall not in any wise bear hatred or a grudge. Right. Those are grudges. You got it.
But then you got Jake, riding around. They'll ride around all day, have a good time, be with their family. But as soon as they see one of the ops, their whole mood change. Their whole day change, and they focus about offing their ops, man. About getting that lick back. And that's wicked, man. That's that we're not supposed to have that amongst our nation. That's chaos.
All right, now we go into the law, Leviticus chapter 19. And I'm going to start at verse 17. And it reads, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. Here's the point. Thou shalt not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahweh Shemel Shai.
Right. And true love is what? Keeping the commandments. Implementing these commandments within our daily walk. That's true love. All right, and by showing our people love, all right, we would implement these laws. We would implement these statutes that the Lord taught us, all right, which is true love, man. All right, that's not what is that I was saying? Can you read back up a little bit, Baba Kashah?
Leviticus 19 and 17. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him.
Right, because when you go about with hatred, you ultimately do things that you don't intend to do. You do things that and otherwise are against your character. Against your moral compass. You begin to go off. That's why the Lord said, "Be ye angry, but sin not." Now,
when you go into the NLT for this, and oftentimes the NLT will go off, but sometimes they'll simplify things to make it easier to digest. Leviticus 19 and 17. Do not nurse hatred in your heart for any of your relatives. Confront people directly so you will not be held guilty for their sin. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against a fellow Israelite, but love your neighbor as yourself. And this shows you that the neighbors that Yahushua was talking about was not other nations.
Right.
This was the laws that we were to keep amongst ourselves. All right, continuing, it says, do not wear, it says, I'll read it again, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against a fellow Israelite, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh Bashem Shah. And that was in the NLT. So now I want to go to Hebrews chapter 6, because this is the literal law for generations to come. Now, in a spiritual sense, Yahweh Shai has become a refuge for us as Israelites in the spirit.
Right.
Where we're guilty of certain things, all right, but now we have an intercessor. And that's why the scriptures say, blessed is him who the Lord hath not imputed iniquity to. Because basically that man who was guilty of killing somebody on accident, he still received mercy because he could go to the city of refuge and stay there till the high priest died. All right. Now, Hebrews 6, and I'm going to just get the point. This is verse 17, wherein Yahweh Bashem Shai, willing more abundantly to show unto the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it by an oath, that by two immutable things, in which it was impossible for the Most High to lie, we might have a strong consolation, who have fled for refuge to lay hold upon the hope set before us.
Right, and once again, what is that refuge that we lay hold on? You know, that we have fled to through the Spirit. All right, that refuge is Yahweh Bashem Shai. That's true. All right, this is a refuge for the hopefully elect.
Right.
All right, a sanctuary, a place of rest. All right, a place where a hedge of protection is placed around us. Because we constantly walk. All right, the scriptures call this place the valley of the shadow of death. So in walking in the valley of the shadow of death, we need a hedge. We need a refuge. We need a sanctuary. And this is it. You know, it starts with receiving those names that Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son. And then it only grows from that point on. You know?
Now, continuing in John, the 3rd chapter, verse 14 reads, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Shai, so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For the Most High sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved.
Right, and with proper understanding, we understand that this whosoever is speaking about the nation of Israel, the elect amongst the nation of Israel on this side. All right, it says, for God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, all right, but that the world through him might be saved. All right, so that few that take refuge in him, all right, that take refuge in Yahweh Bashem Shai might be saved. All right, and this is the starting of it right now. All right, we're taking refuge in the name of Yahweh Bashem Shai. We're taking refuge in this truth. All right.
Now, real quick, this is Ephesians 2:8. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of Yahweh Bashem Shai, not of works, lest any man should boast. Now, in the law, all right, if you did put somebody to death on accident, you had a form of mercy because you could go to one of these cities. All right. That's why we're prisoners of hope now. All right. Hamashiach's blood has, in essence, given us a refuge, so to speak. All right. But we have to remain there. All right. Because when you go into the law, if you leave the city limits of the refuge, you could be put to death. That's why the scriptures harp on enduring it to the end. Stand in that city of refuge. Stand in that strong tower. All right. In essence, that goes back to that law about the city of refuge and being within those borders.
Let me grab that. This is Proverbs 18 and verse 10. It says, the name of the Lord, Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe.
And it's beautiful when you think about it in the spirit, because in ancient Israel, all right, you had these areas, these cities that would be considered cities of refuge. All right. Now the Lord, all across the planet, the Lord has these altars set up in the midst of Israel, as it says in Isaiah the 19th chapter. All across the planet, you have brothers who are standing up, all right, showing forth that light. All right. And those who desire the light, they come toward it. All right. That's why you see an increase in the followers through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Shai, because our people are beginning to believe on Yahweh Shai in return. All right.
And that refuge is increasing. That hedge is increasing. You know, as the ministry increases, that hedge increases. All right, and that number, that remnant that the Lord has reserved, all right, falls under that hedge, falls under that refuge. All right, and coming into these times that we're coming into, all right, that hedge is what's going to be our protection. You know, this refuge of truth, is what's going to be our protection and our strong stay in these evil days.
And at the same time, in the kingdom, this is going to be the law of the land. So when the other nations go off, all right, you're going to know what to do. You're going to say, okay, did he make it to the city of refuge? All right, let's discern the matter. Let's find out if it was intentional. And we're going to understand men's thoughts, so we're going to be able to read between the lines.
Right.
And we're going to say this man is guilty because he had hatred in his heart. And we're going to be able to show them this is what the moment he got offended. And he didn't bring the matter to his brother directly. He let his anger fester. Or if it's a true accident, we're going to say, look, this man is not guilty of murder.
Right.
He accidentally killed this man, and it wasn't enmity. He has to reside, all right, in the city of refuge.
Right. Ain't no 7-year trial. You know, things gonna go to trial right then and there. Proper judgment is gonna proceed right then and there, so that evil don't fester. You know.
Yeah, you got any more?
No, that was it for me.
And so with that, we want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rukakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasharallah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwathim, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.
Shalom.
Wa Abba Abba.
Shalom.
Shalom.